Mark Emmett. I'm Managing Director of Egdon Resources, a geologist by background. Egdon Resources is a long-established business. We formed in 1997. We are a small company based in the UK. We have a total of 36 licenses currently, and over the period we've drilled 13 operated oil and gas wells throughout the UK and one in France. We currently operate two producing oil fields, one at Waddock Cross in Dorset and one at Keddington near Louth in Lincolnshire, and have a number of other sites that we're looking to drill conventional exploration wells in the next 18 months to 2 years. Once we've decided in the subsurface where we want to drill, which we do using historical well data and seismic data, we then obviously have to find a surface location from which we can access that subsurface area. Now that's quite a lengthy process. It involves finding a willing landowner as part of that, but we undertake a screening review. So once we've given our planning advisors, Bart and Wilmore in this case, a location where we want to be able to access on the surface into the subsurface, we then look at things like the location of housing, sites of special scientific interest, sensitive areas, we look at transport, we look at traffic. We look at those houses, those nearest properties that might be affected by noise associated with our operations, and we do that initially on a desk-based approach, and then go out into the field and review the potential locations in more detail. So, as part of that process, we will be provided with a summary of our options, and at that point we define which location we think is best from a planning perspective and has the minimum impact on the local community. At that stage, we'll start to talk to landowners and see if those landowners are willing to accommodate us. We will then negotiate a lease for a period of time to be able to undertake any exploration activity. And at that point then, we have to go through a process of undertaking very, very detailed analysis of a number of the key points as part of an environmental statement that we submit alongside any planning application. A critical part of the planning process is engaging with the local community and ensuring that their concerns are properly addressed and they have an opportunity to review our plans and to comment on those, and it gives us a chance to incorporate any feedback into our plans at an early stage. It's an important and statutory part of the process, but for Egdon it's also a critical part of our community engagement plan. Egdon is a member of UKOOG, the UK Onshore Oil and Gas Group, and we've undertaken to commit to best practice in terms of community engagement in all of our activities. A typical oil and gas exploration project involves many phases. The planning part of the planning phase is clearly important. We need consent from the local mineral planning authority to be able to undertake the operations. Once we have that, we also need to put in place environmental permits under the Mining Waste Directive. But once we've got those in place, then we go down to the construction of the site. That's the first stage. We need to build a site. We need to clear off the topsoil and store that safely so that it can be used to reinstate the site. The subsoil gets taken away and stored in bunds. We flatten the site because we need a good stable base for the drilling rig to be set up on. We put impermeable membrane down so there's no chance of any fluids getting into the ground beneath the site. And we generate a stone base, build a concrete cellar, which is where the actual well is drilled, put ditches around to contain water, rainwater, etc., and a security fence to make sure that people can't wander on and off the site. Once that site is constructed, we wait for the drilling rig to become available. And the next phase is obviously to bring that rig and all the associated equipment onto the site for the temporary period whilst we're drilling. And depending on the depth of the well, that can range from 2 to 3 weeks for a shallow well to maybe up to 6 to 8 weeks for a deep directional well that's steered away from that surface location. That involves bringing in a number of relatively large lorry movements, and they're the biggest movements we have when we're bringing onto site. There's the main unit of the rig with its mast that's brought in and put up. There are ancillary cabins which contain all of the support services for dealing with the mud system that we use to bring information, cuttings to the surface and lubricate the drilling operations. There are the mud loggers, key people who actually monitor all of the levels of mud and gas in the mud and oil and look at the cuttings, the chippings of rock that come back up, so we know where we are in the geological succession. We also have a full-time site presence who manages the operation on behalf of Egdon. the drilling supervisor, and he's responsible for the day-to-day operations and for ensuring everything is undertaken in a safe and considerate manner. So once that rig is set up, we drill the well. We get the results of logging information, where we run specialist equipment down the hole and wire line, and that actually measures the physical properties of the rock, and we're able to tell from that the amount of pore space in the rock and whether that pore space contains oil, gas or water. Now, if there are indications of oil or gas, then we go to the next phase, which is testing the well to see if that oil and gas can be brought to the surface in commercial quantities. The rig by this stage will have been demobilised and taken away, and typically we will have a smaller workover rig to install a completion, so the tubing downhole and the pump downhole, which enables us to undertake an extended well test. And they can last for up to 6 months, but typically a lot shorter duration. And during that time we'll have a nodding donkey or similar sort of pump at the surface. We'll have some storage tanks. We'll have a flare if there are small amounts of gas that will be associated with the operation and with the oil. And we will pump to storage tanks and periodically take the oil and any associated water away from the site for disposal in the case of water and for sale in the case of the oil. If it's a gas prospect that we're looking at, the test is of a much shorter duration. Typically it will be 4 to 5 days. We have a choke to manage the gas flow at the surface, a separator to take away any of the gas and any liquids, which could be small amounts of oil or water associated with the gas, and we will have a temporary flare which will have been authorised by the Environment Agency, which will burn the gas for a short duration, typically during daylight only. And from that information we're able to tell, in the case of oil, whether it's commercially viable to produce that oil, and in the case of gas, whether the flow rates and the quantity of gas in the subsurface is sufficient for the operation to go forward. And if we do have a commercially viable prospect project, we will then have to submit planning application for that next phase of the operation, where we develop that into a more permanent site, where over a period of typically 10 to 20 years we will drill additional wells and recover the oil or gas from that site. Now, at the end of both of those phases, so in the case where we've not been successful with the testing and it's not commercial, or where we've come to the end of the production phase, we will plug and make safe the wells on site and restore the site to its original condition, and effectively that will mean taking away all of the subsurface, capping the subsurface well bores well below ground level, taking all of the stone and other equipment off site and having that disposed of in an environmentally sensitive manner, and also restoring that site to its original condition by putting that subsoil back in that we stored originally, putting the topsoil back in, and establishing drainage, etc., to the original specification of the site.